Championship Wildcard Qualifier. For those of you not familiar with the Gold League World Championship, it is an event going on in China. And basically it is the top 1 to 2 teams from Worlds with 2 additional spots open for the Wildcard Qualifier and the International Qualifier for the teams who came in second, third, and fourth in some of the major regions. As you can see, we're going to have MVP Miracle versus Tempest for the first set. Tempest banned Garden of Terror. MVP banned Warhead Junction, and then Tempest picked Brax's Holdout. MVP picked Cursed Hollow, and if we do get to a Game 3, it will be on Tempest's choice of Sky Temple. I am casting this from a VOD. It is a clean feed, so there's not going to be any background noise. You're just going to have the in-game sound. But as a result, I'm going to be able to skip a little bit around. So I apologize for the loading. We are going to go immediately into the draft screen. The first map, as noted, is Brax's Holdout. You can see a little bit of the time pool being used up. MVP Miracle does have first pick, first ban. They opt to ban ETC. This is something we've been seeing a lot of in Korea, especially trying to isolate that tank role as much as possible, because there are a very limited number of complete tanks. ETC and Murden are the only 2 tanks really that have a complete kit, and everyone else sort of has to compromise in the draft. Murden also going to be banned out, so those are now the only 2 tanks that have complete kits in the game. The rest of the draft is going to be about compromising. It is a little bit easier on Brax's Holdout not to have a tank with an escape, because you're so dedicated to that 4-man. Rotations are a thing that don't really exist to the same degree as they do on other maps, so you don't need an escape to the same degree. Malfurion going to be the immediate lock-in for MVP Miracle. Having Sustain on Brax's Holdout for your 4-man is incredibly important, and Sustain comes from efficiency of healing and not necessarily the amount of healing. So Malfurion really fits that build because he also has the Innervate, the only support that can restore mana as well. Tempest, I imagine, is going to lock in their support here to make sure they don't get isolated. They do. They opt for Morales. Morales, Malfurion, and Brightwing are kind of the top 3 supports on this map. Morales has the advantage of having a global option at level 10. This is Chinese Gold League. This match was played 2 days ago. So this is casting from VODs. The next Chinese Gold League live will be a week from now. It'll be on the 19th, and I will actually be casting that live at 1 a.m. my time, 1 a.m. PST. Gul'dan also going to be locked in for Tempest. Gul'dan Morales is kind of amazing. Gul'dan basically can't run out of mana with Morales healing him constantly. And Gul'dan arguably has the best wave clear with his Echoed Corruption quest finished of any hero on Brax's Holdout, except for potentially new crowd control Muradin. I'm sure we've all seen that video. Johanna going to lock in here for MVP Miracle. That's actually mandatory. They needed to lock in their tank there, because if they don't manage to do that, they won't have it for the next round. Tempest can continue to do tank isolation bans and then pick up their tank, and then there won't be any tanks left that can really completely fill the role. Vala also going to be picked up. Extremely high damage right now. This match was played, I believe, pre-nerf, so she still has the full multi-shot build as an option without the nerf. And Medivh banned out for Tempest. I like that decision quite a bit. What we've seen for Vala in pro play lately is she kind of either requires double support or triple frontline. And while MVP Miracle could have gone triple frontline, I think there's options for double support on the table that are a lot stronger. Medivh in particular is really, really strong in Brax's Holdout, because when you do have to rotate between beacons, he enables that rotation to be cut more than in half, because you can portal past the escape point. Sergeant Hammer going to be the ban for MVP Miracle. And that's going to disable the ability to win the 4-man and then push aggressively. There's only 2 heroes that allow you to do that, but the other one is Sylvanas, and that's immediately going to be locked in by Tempest. I feel like Tempest needs to lock in their tank here. They do. They pick up Tyrael, pretty much the only remaining tank from the professional player perspective. If you go read some of the professional players' opinions on where the tanking that is, it's EDC Muradin, Tyrael for certain kinds of comps, and Johanna is sort of like the leftovers if you can't get one of those, or you don't have a dive comp. Alarak going to be the pickup for MVP Miracle. That is going to be their solo laner, and Falstad for their global. I'm really liking MVP Miracle's draft. They have one of the best solo laners in the game. A little bit of a bug there. They have a lot of sustain in the form of Malfurion. They have enough wave clear to make sure that their 4-man can't get pushed in the lane. I am a little concerned that they're not going to be able to win the point if that Vala can't be protected. So I think the Vala is going to be the point of failure that Tempest is going to try and go after. Thrall picked up. Thrall Alarak is a really interesting matchup in the solo lane. Because I've seen pro players win and lose it on both sides. Sometimes the Thrall wins, sometimes the Alarak wins. It really does seem like one of the highest skill matchups to some degree. And again, I am casting this from a VOD, so we're going to be able to just skip forward to the actual game. There will be a live cast. There we go. They don't have the names on the VOD. I'm a little bit surprised by that. I mean, it's like the team introduction thing. It will be MVP Miracle versus Tempest. This is the new Tempest roster, I believe, with Hyde and Lockdown, but not the old players that we are familiar with. And we are going to see a little bit of a push attempt here, basically abusing the Sylvanas to get this 4-man push. Normally top is the solo lane, not because it's any stronger, it's just sort of convention that top is the solo lane. And both teams are deciding to outpush. You can't really rotate and deal with that 4-man. Because the map is so big, you just have to try and be defensive and let them push into you. We need to see aggressively trying to go on to reset here, get that pick off. This Sylvanas focusing on disabling the building so they don't take that additional damage. And both teams just pushing in here. You can see it is possible with a sustain healer like Malfurion to push in. Even without the Sylvanas, you can absorb those shots. Reset is forced to run. His team is not collapsing to save him, which means they're comfortable just getting that distraction. They're okay with it. Thrall doing his best to be defensive here. Thrall has to be careful here. His only escape is Wind Fury when that's on cooldown. It's difficult for him to get out of these situations. The bottom fort is going to go down first for MVP Miracle. Tempest actually a little bit behind the top fort race, essentially. Echoed Corruption not going to get stacked up very quickly here for Gul'dan, considering they're in a 4v1 lane and Reset actually left. Grabbing the globe. And it looks like now that the forts are down, the 4-man is going to rotate down for Tempest. I imagine Thrall is going to swap places. And that's just interesting. Both teams decided that they couldn't rotate in time to stop the aggression. They opted just to trade. We're going to see a quick review of the talents here. It looks like we do have Prolonged Safeguard for Morales, which is the only talent we don't see very often. The rest of them are pretty standard. We're going to start to see a 4-man fight across the board. Falstad actually in the top lane for MVP Miracle. That does give them the global ability to come down and make this a 5v4 whenever they want to, but it also means that he's never going to be able to take that point away from Thrall. Falstad can't really win the 1v1 versus Thrall's sustain. Or if he can, it's extremely difficult. A little bit of lag there. That's not on my end. Is that the VOD? Wait. Looks like the player froze. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why that happened. One second, let me see if I can fix it. Looks like the browser actually froze. That's not good. Let me close this up in the background. If you get a chance, could you explain the format? How many foreign teams are in this Gold League? Is Blizzard already invited? Yes. So, while that's... Chrome is a RAM eater. I'm actually not using Chrome. Which is why I'm a little bit confused. I specifically, I tried this earlier to make sure that there weren't going to be any problems, and it worked fine. So for those of you who are asking, the participating teams are Ballistics, Dignitas, Astral Authority, MVP Black, Zero Panda, and Super Perfect Team. There is a global wildcard, which is the qualifier we are watching right now, and there is a Chinese wildcard. And I believe the Chinese wildcard qualifier will happen next week. Those will be the games that I'll be casting then. So they're participating for 1 of 8 potential spots. I think I should just restart my Murphy's Law. Yeah, anything can't go wrong will go wrong. I agree. All right. Let me try restarting the VOD. See if that helps. Again, I apologize. This is where we say that technology is the vehicle of esports. Sometimes technology breaks down. All right, so I got it back, but it's a little bit behind. Let me fast forward to where the fight was happening. That's too far. It's still too far. Alright. This is about where we were. So we can see Lockdown hasn't quite finished his quest because we don't see the Echoed Corruption coming back. It will be a little while before he gets that. That is really the critical reason that Gul'dan is really strong on this map. Having that finished. Go full screen. There we go. And we are going to have momentarily the bottom point captured by MVP Miracle, but top is still going over to Tempest. They do have that Thrall. Falstad actually gets significantly chunked, is forced to barrel roll out. He does get healed up. He will get out of there. There's no potential follow-up. This is one of the problems with having a low CC style of comps. And you can't secure kills in quite the same ways that you could otherwise. So when you have Tyrael as a tank, it's just not going to work out quite as well. We do see Amplify Healing picked up for Tyrael. This gives him not only mana sustain, because it does restore mana, additional mana from Glimpse and Wells, it makes Morales' healing on him more efficient, which is important. Again, Braxis is a lot about sustaining your 4-man for a long time to win lane as aggressive, to win the point as aggressively as possible. And if you can't sustain your 4-man, you're not going to be able to win, because you can't, unless you have a blow-up comp, you can't just kill someone and have that be the end of it. It's trading damage incrementally over time, getting small advantages and cooldowns and efficiencies of all sorts. So I'm not surprised at all to see Amplify Healing picked up there. And you can see Johanna on the other side is doing the exact same thing, also picking up Amplified Healing. Both teams demonstrating a really strong understanding of the dynamics of the map and the comps they were sort of forced into by the draft. You're going to see an aggressive fight over the point here. Hooligan is trying to secure the point. He really wants to get this bottom. They can't let him have it since they're currently contesting top as well. And they do manage to cap the bottom. Beacon Falstad immediately, as soon as they lose it, flies to the top lane, making that a 2v1. Thrall should go down here if Falstad can barrel wall over the wall for the catch, and he does get that kill, but reset is extremely low. Hyde manages to finish that off. He hunting whipped over the wall for that rotation. And that ends up being a 1-for-1. MVP Miracle and Tempest going blow for blow right now. And trying to force him off. Hooligan's completely out of mana. But he can stay on that point as long as Morales has mana. You can't force an amplified healing tank off a point when they have a Morales healing them unless you can get to the Morales. And there's just not enough dive. They are eventually forced to back up. Lockdown is taking a lot of damage. But you just don't have the mana to continue that fight. Hyde, however, does tap, comes back, and gets the Force 1v1. MVP Miracle is the first team to finally get the cap there at 54%. Level 7 to level 7, both teams staying relatively even in experience. A slight lead for MVP Miracle. And we are going to see both teams start to try and cap some mercenary camps. This does give them lane pressure while they're contesting the points, and you have that lane pressure, you can get your lanes pushed in. It also grants you vision. Vision in the lanes, considering they're directly adjacent to the beacons, is actually incredibly valuable. And we can see that corruption trying to get stacked up as quickly as possible. Lockdown still not quite there. We're going to see a beautiful condemn, actually. Reset managing to get a beautiful, beautiful combo. Thrall ends up going down. As a nice follow-up thing then, but this is was a 5v5. Neither team soaking the top lane, but the mercenary camp is pushing that top lane. Unfortunately, the siege camps on this map tend to only really be good against... Ooh, that was a nice safeguard. Tend to only really be good against the minion waves. As soon as they get to the buildings, they tend to sort of peter out, so that you can't threaten buildings the same way you can on other maps with the siege camp. And we're going to see an aggressive barrel roll in. Hyde ends up going down as well. Haunting Wave not enough to save him there. And on the back of that, both of these points are going to be capped by MVP Miracle easily. Easily capped by MVP Miracle. And we're going to have a pretty decent Zerg wave, actually. It's going to be 86 to 100, which is going to be relatively even for both teams. However, MVP, both teams will be pushing in the lane. They've already secured a fort, and Sylvanas can drastically enhance the value of the Zerg wave for Tempest if they opt to push with it. I'll be curious to see if they opt to push with it or if they opt to go defensive. Tempest is a relatively aggressive team. Would not be surprised to see them go for the aggressive option. It looks like they are going to play defensive here, though. They are actually going to do a 5-man defense. Falstad in the top lane is soaking. That means that MVP Miracle will pick up 10 first, and actually will pick up 10 during this push, which means Tempest is going to fall dramatically behind. Probably a full 3 levels, and a heroic talent tier at that. The Ultralisk now on the keep wall. The gate is going to go down very quickly here. We can see the top tower being a priority. They want to get that down. Falstad with the defense on the Zerg wave from Tempest. He's going to be able to clear that up relatively easily. He does have Boomerang. And the whole keep wall is down. All the Zerg except the Guardians are dead. Heroics come down, and immediately they use Blessed Shield to secure that pick on Gul'dan. At this point, MVP Miracle is pretty chunked. And they're still in a 4v5 scenario. They have burnt 1 heroic. They have 4 available. We can see a beautiful condemn from Tiss. And they're going to back up. They don't think they can get any more out of this push. But they're so far ahead. That is a full 2-level lead for them because Falstad was soaking top that whole time, because Falstad was defending. They did lose a little bit of structure damage on their keep wall. They're comparable in structures, but MVP Miracle significantly ahead in terms of experience. And we can see they're using their position to aggressively steal the Bruiser camp. They're going to push in with this. This does threaten keep directly. The keep wall is gone. The fort in that lane is gone. Falstad doing the split soak. When you get to this late in the game, having your global do split soak means that you can always join the fight if necessary. They can do that pressure. You don't necessarily be alone. And the Alarak Malfurion combo, telekinesis into roots, is incredibly strong at securing picks on anyone who's out of position. This forces Tempest to play very, very safe because they don't necessarily know where that 4-man is. You're going to see Sylvanas rotate down to deal with that Bruiser camp. And this is one of the things that Sylvanas gives you a defensive advantage on. If you stun a camp with that W, you're just doing so much damage. You're doing so much denial, essentially, because if the camp's stunned, it doesn't push in at all. And that's something that Sylvanas gives you defensively. A lot of people talk about how strong Sylvanas is offensively when she's pushing with an objective, but defensively, she can prevent a lot of things from pushing onto your lanes and getting too far pushed in. We're going to see a beautiful Horrified appeal for Hooligan, but he's going to try and get himself out with Eldruins. He has to sank just to save himself, essentially, but we are going to see in the back a beautiful silence going down. Alarak, however, does end up being the first to fall. MVP Miracle taking the worst end of this team fight. We are going to see a condemn here onto Thrall. He does end up going down. So a counter kill that ends up being a 1-for-1. And Tiss is so low mobility trying to get out. He does manage to get out, but Vala ends up paying for his sins and goes down in his place. And ends up being a 2-for-1. Tempest starting to come back a little bit now that they have their heroics. Now that they can force these team fights. We are going to see Hyde with the rotation to the top lane. He's going to cap that top beacon, making sure they can't get both. He's trying to, and we can see the rest of Tempest trying to get this bottom beacon. They do end up securing it for the moment, but they only get 8% before Alarak top manages to take it back away. We do see a beautiful route onto Morales there, and then follow up from the Falstad, chunking her extremely low, less than half her life, but her trade's going to kick in momentarily. She's going to top herself off. And we do see a Blessed Shield come down. Reset actually coming into the back line, hunting for that medic. If they can get the medic, that's so good. Telekinesis into the roots. Lockdown is going to go down as well. That is a 2 for none. And that's what I was talking about. That Malfurion Alarak combo is so dangerous. You get a telekinesis into a perfect route like that. There's just nothing you can really do. And we are going to have both beacons capped now for MVP Miracle. They're also grabbing camps. They're going to have their lanes pushed in. This is going to be a 100 to 8% Zerg wave. 13 picked up off the back of that fight for MVP Miracle, so they're going to be pushing up a talent tier again. Burning Rage picked up. Gloom. Ice Block from Malfurion. Pretty standard Airy Gust. Pretty standard talents across the board, really. We are going to see Hindering Motion, I believe, picked up for Alarak. That is a talent we don't see too often. It does reduce his sadism by 10%, but it gives him a slow on his telekinesis. I know in the NA and EU scenes we almost always see either Malice, which basically gives you additional sadism for your team dying, or the increased damage on telekinesis. Most people don't like sacrificing the damage for the utility, but as you can see on a coordinated team like this, just having that additional slow is going to allow you to secure quite a few additional kills, and you don't really need the damage on your own. Alarak, his team's doing enough damage, especially with that Vala. We can see Thrall was looking for a flank there, and is forced to actually use Sunder just for the disengage, and again, the telekinesis into the root combo, securing a kill on Thrall. He basically burned Sunder for nothing. He was going to die anyway. But his distraction was actually enough to allow Tempest to clear the Zerg wave, the 100% Zerg wave, without losing even a keep wall, much less a keep. So his death was not entirely in vain. We can see MVP Miracle is going to rotate out, grab this boss very quickly. Not a risk at all for them. They do have all of the boss control heroics. They have that Gust. Holy Ground not yet picked up for Tyrael since he's not level 16. So there's really nothing Tempest could have even potentially done to deal with that. I mean, maybe if they pulled off a Clutch Horrify, but one could say they keep the keep. One could indeed. You can see Tis checking that bush with the shield glare, making sure that there's no one there waiting for his team. They are going to grab this Siege Camp to push with the boss. The boss is actually doing a lot of damage. The boss on Braxis is kind of strange. It's extremely fragile. It's so low health. It's so easy to burn down. But it does so much damage, and it will actually attack heroes. So it's you're normally getting a boss and not pushing with it is a mistake. I think in the case of Braxis, it's always a mistake. You really always want to push with the boss and support it as much as possible. 13 finally picked up for Tempest. We are going to see Imposing Presence picked up. Windrunner, Spell Shield, Giant Killer. So he's going to put them on an even tier talent. And we do see Sank aggressively, actually Haunting Wave on top of the Sank to make that happen. We are going to see a beautiful, aggressive push in, but they respond with Twilight Dream for the counter initiate, and that's going to be an easy 2 kills. The Sunder does come in from the side. Thrall is alive and well. He does manage to get that pick on the Alarak. That kill is actually critical. On a 2-lane map, you're never going to catch up in experience by soaking. Once you're behind, you're behind. On levels, you actually have to get kills. You have to depend on that comeback mechanic of bonus experience for securing kills when you're behind. As you can see, they were 3 levels behind. That kill basically secured them a full level. They're now 16 to 14, but the beacons are back alive, and both of them are going to be secured immediately here by MVP Miracle. 16 pickup, we are going to see the reduced cooldown on telekinesis for even more root shenanigans. False getting reduced cooldown as well. Imposing Presence being the pickup here for Johanna that gives her a second slow and mitigates damage from auto attacks, which is going to give Malfurion's healing over time additional time to work. Just such a strong 16 tier for MVP Miracle, given the situation they're in, where all they have to do really is not lose. They don't have to. They've already won the game at this point. All they have to do is continue to not lose, and a lot of the talents at 16 aid them in that endeavor. This is going to be a full 5v5 in the bot lane momentarily. We do see Tis coming in from the back here. Thrall is already extremely low. Sanctification does come down to help keep him alive. Modern Life, however, does get collapsed upon in the back, and that's going to be Medic going down first. And as soon as Medic's dead, this fight's over. Once you have if you have a medic in a comp, the comp is always about protecting the medic. Once the medic dies, the fight is over. That actually will be an ace for MVP Miracle. They do get the complete kill onto Tempest. That is a 100-0 Zerg wave. Their Zerg wave will be pushing in an open lane where the keep is already dead, and they're just going to go core and end the game. Tempest with a Sylvanas actually got outpushed by MVP Miracle just because of the raw damage of the Vala and the amount of sustain that a Malfurion provides. Johanna was just eating those shots, and it didn't matter. Because between Iron Skin and Malfurion's Q, she just keep her alive. So that was game 1, or set 1, I should say, of MVP Miracle versus Tempest. We are going to skip ahead a little bit in the VOD to the next draft. Again, I won't be casting from a VOD next time, but I didn't know that there was going to be a clean feed, so I have to sort of catch up. And I apologize. Just looking for the next draft. There we go. So we're going to have MVP Miracle versus Tempest, best of 3, set 2 on Cursed Hollow. EDC is again going to be the ban for Tempest. I wonder if MVP Miracle is going to respond with that Muradin ban. If they don't respond with the Muradin ban, 100% expect Tempest to pick it up first pick. The tank isolation has been real. This is something that Korean teams in particular have just been doing to other teams and to each other a lot. They actually are going to ban out the Illidan, which means that Tempest has a non-choice here. They are 100% in my mind going to lock in Muradin right here. They're actually thinking about it. They're using a little bit of their time pool. And no, that is going to be the Muradin. And MVP Miracle has a decision to make about what they want to lock in. I imagine we're going to see the Malfurion picked up here, because Tempest will immediately take it if it is not. But the question is, what are we going to see in addition to that? We are going to see the Abathur, which means we're probably going to see a Greymane pickup at some point in this draft. Whenever you pick Abathur, you're always drafting around what your clone target's going to be. You really want to make sure you can win those team fights, and the rest of it is just about the match pressure. They actually go Abathur Tyrael. Since they didn't pick up Greymane, Tempest can ban it out, but with Illidan banned out as well, I mean, generally speaking, when you're using Sanctification to enable a particular hero, it's Illidan or it's Greymane. With Tempest having the ability to ban Greymane out, I'm curious to see what MVP Miracle's third pick is that they want to enable with Sanctification and an Abathur clone. They could just be picking up Tyrael and going for something that Tyrael doesn't necessarily specifically enable, but he would disable. For instance, Sanctification is a really good response to the Zeratul Jaina Wombo combo, and Jaina is an exceptional clone. I don't think we're going to see that, but I think there's something a little bit odd going on with that draft. We're going to see Li Ming Malfurion picked up. Li Ming's poke gives her exceptional delay on the tributes, and the range just makes her so safe because there's so much terrain she can stand behind and just be 100% out of the fight, but still doing that damage. Malfurion going to be the pickup for Tempest as well. No surprise there. Immediate ban on Falstad. Globals to hunt Abathur are just annoying to deal with. Brightwing going to be banned out for Tempest. There's basically 3 top tier supports in Pro Play now: Malfurion, Brightwing, and Ariel. So it's just a question of which support they would ban there. Would it be the Brightwing or would it be the other? On a bigger map, Brightwing is a lot scarier because of her ability to split soak. Even though they have the Abathur, Brightwing actually gets better in some ways with an Abathur, because Abathur can be anywhere he wants to on the map, and then Brightwing can Z to him. And they are going to pick up the Greymane, so Tempest did not ban the Greymane. And I feel like when you don't ban Greymane in this situation, it's because you feel like you have a way of dealing with it. Twilight Dream is a good counter-initiate, and Malfurion can save himself with Ice Block. Li Ming can pick up Force Armor. You're not going to burst out a Muradin without a Tychus. It's just not going to happen. Or a Tehran. So they have a lot of tools to deal with it, but the Medivh going to be picked up for MVP Miracle as well. And that's going to make the Greymane really survivable. He's going to have an Abathur hat. Presumably, we're going to see the Soma Transference at 13, which is going to give Abathur the ability to heal Greymane. And when he's cloning him, he'll be able to dive in much more aggressively than the actual Greymane. Vala is going to be the pickup for Tempest. Wow. Vala is incredibly fragile. If Greymane gets on top of her, she's 100% dead without any sort of burst healer. And Malfurion certainly does not qualify. I wonder if we're going to see a Tassadar pickup here for Tempest. If they pick up the Tassadar... Yeah. They pick up the Tassadar, then Vala has essentially bonus health, and that's not an issue. Plus, she gets even more sustain from her aggressive auto attacks. The name is highlighted, but there's a question mark. I don't know if that's a technical issue. It is going to be the Tassadar. All right. I think that was the only pickup, honestly. There maybe was an argument for Zarya, but Zarya's shield is on a slightly longer cooldown. She does, however, provide another body in the front line. And Rhaegar going to be picked up from MVP Miracle. That's going to give them a burst heal on that aggressive Greymane. I'm actually a little bit surprised that the Greymane was let through that second ban phase. I understand they're wanting to isolate the support options. But in my mind, Brightwing is an anti-dive support. And I felt like it was so obvious they wanted the Greymane clone once they picked up the Abathur. I feel like they just have a lot of confidence against Greymane compositions in order to let that through. You're going to skip to the actual game. We'll have MVP Miracle again on the left. Their lip syncing system is not working. I don't know about that one, guys. We are going to see the full hat build coming out of Abathur as expected. The Spike Burst cooldown reduction at level 1, also increasing the range. It's going to synergize with that Soma Transference at 13. Pretty similar talents across the board otherwise. We do see Shando's Clarity picked up to feed the Vala, but she doing Hot Pursuit. She's not really going to have mana. She's also going to help with Tassadar. Tassadar spamming his Qs in late game team fights, even when he finishes Conjures, does have those issues. We are going to see a beautiful 3-man push. This is actually another benefit that doesn't get talked about. Greymane single target damage usually gets talked about in the context of, yeah, you can kill someone so quickly, but his PvE damage is insane. Only on BoE does it really get mentioned, but if you have bosses on a map like Cursed Hollow, you can burn down a boss faster than most teams can really respond to the fact that you're on boss. You're missing off the map. Oh, they're at boss. You try and go to boss. Oh, it's already dead because Greymane. And the same thing applies to these tri-lane situations. If you have support Greymane in a lane, he can just... and you have someone tank the shots for him, he can just burn a building down so incredibly quickly. And we can see the entire front wall already gone, MVP Miracle. This is something you would normally expect, against an Abathur comp. If you have an Abathur comp, normally you're a little bit weaker pre-10, you should be the one getting pushed in. But MVP Miracle says, like, nah, we're not gonna allow that to happen. We're gonna push into you, we're gonna make you respond to us. And we are gonna see Vala push into the bottom lane slightly slower. But it is Vala versus an Abathur, and that is a matchup that Vala will eventually, inevitably, win. You can see she's already starting to put some damage on that tower, but not, a whole wall's worth of damage. They did give up a little bit of soak mid with that aggressiveness, but it's fine. They got most of it with the Abathur hat, and now they're just going to rotate and go mid and do the same thing. Abathur, meanwhile, going to burrow top, make sure that soak happens, and look how quickly Greymane burns that down, especially with the lightning shield from Rhaegar as well. This is a 4-man push in the top lane. Abathur's doing everything he can. They're missing a little tiny bit of experience to make this happen in terms of soak, but they're getting ahead in tempo in terms of the experience by getting these structures down early. And that's incredibly valuable for MVP Miracle because they want to get to 10 as quickly as possible. Their team fight until 10 is not good, but post 10, their team fight is going to be bonkers. There is just no other word for it. 16, it gets even better with reabsorption. That Greymane is literally never going to die. Bloodless Wars is going to be the pickup at level 4 for Abathur. That's going to give him a ton of map vision and map control. We are going to see Haraj Reforging picked up at 4 for Tyrael. It is the standard pickup on this map because the reduced cooldown allows you to make sure you get the Holy Ground usage. That's not only for bosses, but just because Cursed Hollow has a huge number of choke points. Pretty standard talents otherwise across the board. Everyone, I think, is pretty used to seeing at this point. We are still going to see the full multi-shot build from Vala. Level 5 to level 4 as the first tribute spawns, and it's actually going to be a full rotation from both teams. Medivh Portal's just trying to be annoying. They're actually throwing down a root on top of the Medivh Portal that is a little bit irritating. Can't immediately jump back into that. And Vala actually going to chunk Rhaegar here. Rhaegar does manage to live through it, but he is chunked out. He does have tap available. He can just rotate, grab that tap, and come right back into the fight. We are going to see the portal come down. Greymane actually does end up going down, gets caught by the root there, and as a result, Hyde is going to be able to pick up that tribute. That is a bad situation for MVP Miracle. They really want to delay that for as long as possible. They do have the Siege Camp pushing top. Medivh saving himself with Force of Will there. And Tempest actually pushing in with their bottom Siege. Getting the counter kill on the wall, taking advantage. They're turning that one kill into an entire wall. This is how bad it is to die at this high level play. Normally, it's like you get a kill. Oh yeah, you got the tribute. No, this is tribute wall for that kill. And we're going to see Li Ming back for mana and then rotate to the top lane. She's going to have to deal with us. She tries to get the kill on the Abathur, but Abathur sees her coming, backs up. Murden in the mid lane, making sure that soak does not get missed. 7 is picked up first for MVP Miracle. They are still a little bit ahead in experience, but Tempest is rapidly closing the gap. We are going to see Toxic Max picked up that gives Abathur more map control, slowing down those rotations. Master's Touch from Medivh. I really wish we had a quest interface so we could see how close he is to finishing that talent. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Cleanse picked up for Rhaegar. Reciprocate and Wizened Duelist picked up for Greymane. So they're really depending on getting those kills to have a really high-powered Greymane. The fact that he died early on is a little bit concerning. Be like, you're the first death of the game, but you're still gonna take Wizened Duelist. We're gonna believe that you stay alive. And of course, in the late game, they will have more tools to keep him alive. They'll have that Sanctification. They'll have Reabsorption on Force of Will. They'll have that Abathur hat that also provides healing. And this is a favorable spawn for Tempest. It is on their side of the map. They really want to get this tribute because the next one is guaranteed to be on the left side of the map. And we can see Modern Life trying to get the channel. Reset is just getting free stacks of Master's Touch at this point, but they are going to have to sacrifice the tribute. They're just they don't really want to get this tribute. They don't really want to go into that fight. They want to delay for as long as possible so that Abathur can get that. So Tist actually gets caught, tries to go in aggressively with Eldruins, but ends up dying instead. A little bit too aggressive trying to make that delay happen. Eldruins is essentially Tyrael's only poke, but I don't think he actually intended to follow it up by going in and triggering the Q. Does end up going down. That is the second kill for Tempest, second kill of the game for this set. And both teams gonna just push in. We do see the bruisers are finally cleared up. Abathur was bottom soaking, backs up immediately as soon as Hooligan does the rotation. And both teams have managed to even it out in experience and almost not quite in structures. The top 4 did in fact go down to that siege push earlier after the wall was gone from the Greymane tri-lane push. Both teams going to start getting the available camps. There actually are no available camps for MVP Miracle, but Tempest managed to hold on to their siege. It does respawn, and they grab their bruisers. We're going to see a dive onto Vala here. We're going to see the portal try and secure that kill, but not quite going to get there. Tassadar and Malfurion are there in time to save the Vala. Tis is taking a lot of damage. He's actually going to get caught out again. He tries to Eldruins over the wall. It was on cooldown. Not quite there. And that ends up being a bait, almost. I don't think it was an intentional bait, but Vala essentially baited the Medivh into putting a portal down. His team followed him through the portal to their demise. And that's going to feel real bad because that's going to guarantee Curse. Tyrael will not be alive in time to contest this. Medivh, if he has enough shenanigans in his kit, could potentially delay this. We are going to see lockdown with the channel. Hooligan is threatening you. If you do anything to my team, I'm going to Stormbolt you immediately, and Li Ming will combo you, and you will die. They do end up giving it up. That is level 10 picked up for Tempest. Oh, beautiful, beautiful Force of Will, denying the Reign of Vengeance there, but Greymane ends up going down anyway, and still no value from Wizened Duelist because no kills, so he didn't lose any stacks because he doesn't have any stacks. And Tempest is just going to aggressively push in with their 10s. The Siege is pushing bottom lane. That's going to get a lot of value. You can actually see the aggressive jump over the wall, the stun onto Reset, but he does back out. Force of Will is there in time to save him. He has some retreat space. Tempest was still getting the wall down, so they couldn't all follow up with that jump. But we are going to see real damage done to the keep wall here. Normally, you're happy to get 2 forts off of first curse. They're going to get forts and a keep wall. Sanctification comes down, denies a lot of the fight here. Avatar is not available. No heroics actually available for Tempest. They're going to be forced to back out here momentarily. They do, however, get another pick onto the Greymane. And I think this is why they didn't ban the Greymane. They're like, oh, you're going to go Greymane? That's great. We'll just kill Greymane. Every time he dives in, we're just going to focus him and kill him instantly. And that's working out for them so far. As soon as Reabsorption gets picked up and Reset starts throwing those Force of Wills on him, and the actual turns into healing instead of just damage negation, I think the situation might be a little bit different. But at the rate Tempest is going, the game will be over before MVP Miracle gets to 16. Both teams backing completely. Tempest is not on the map, and MVP Vehicle takes this as an invitation to just grab their boss. They're rotating to try and stop them, but the Abathur mines are actually slowing them down, dismounting them. But they don't have that. They have that Greymane. They have that potential burn. If they could just do it a little bit faster, it's so close. They were so close. Leyline sealed for the delay, and this is something that wouldn't work against anyone but a Greymane. But they do get on the point in time. Muradin on the point, not 16 yet. Does not have Avatar. He does have Avatar, excuse me. He does pop it. It's going to be very difficult to force him off the point. And Tempest actually steals the boss. If Greymane had literally even one Wizened Duelist stack, I think they would have gotten that boss. But not only did he not get any, he just died. The entire bottom keep wall is gone from that siege push during Curse, which means that this boss is pushing into an unprotected keep. It would be unusual to get a 9-minute keep off of a boss, but given the circumstances, with it already being low, with the wall already being gone, I actually think the keep is guaranteed to happen. Pretty standard talent pickups at 13. We're actually seeing Tempered by Discipline over Gloom. That does feed back into the Tacit Art. Normally you go Gloom to prevent burst, but Tacit Art's already denying the burst. And Leeming resets are a real thing. Reset ends up going down. Greymane ends up going down as well. And that was just brutal. I believe that is going to be a 10-minute game out of Tempest. They are going to go core, and they are just going to end. The only original players on Tempest right now are Hyde and Lockdown. I believe their rosters swapped the other players. And we will be going to a game 3. Actually, so let's see. This is the global wildcard, so I actually don't have an official idea of what their roster is right now. This is basically new Tempest. 2 of the original players, and then some three new players. There are a lot of free agents in Korea that are actually quite strong. So we'll skip forward in the VOD. Again, I apologize for casting from the VOD, guys. I didn't know there were going to be clean feeds before. Someone in my stream actually told me about it. So shout out to K1 Calder. And next week, when the Chinese qualifier is happening, I will be casting that live at 1 a.m. PST from the clean feed. I just didn't know, or I would have been doing it to begin with. Here we go. Game 3, MVP Miracle versus Tempest on Sky Temple. Another macro map. This is actually the most popular map in the Chinese meta. So I kind of wish I could hear what the Chinese commentators were going to say about this, because they have more experience casting Sky Temple, I think, than any professional casters in the world. But I wonder if we're going to see that tank isolation again. We are. ETC is going to be the ban from MVP Miracle. And this is just so brutal to watch, because the Koreans have amazing tank players. Just straight amazing tank players. So, you ban out the ETC, you ban out the Muradin, and it's like, well, there goes a lot of our playmaking potential as a team. Because normally the ETC and the Muradin are really responsible for securing those initial kills, for having those strong initial engagements. But the counterban of Illidan, again, Illidan is strong in general, or considered strong in general in the Korean scene. He's particularly strong on Sky Temple because he can solo a temple without losing a significant amount of health. Any hero who can be on a temple, kill the Guardian to actually get that experience, because the big Guardian at least, actually does give experience and a regeneration globe. And come out of it at full health, ready for a fight, is actually incredibly valuable. It's one of the reasons this is the only map we see when we do see ETC picked up, Guitar Hero actually picked up, because it gives him that sustain early on to make sure that he doesn't take a significant amount of damage during the temple phase when he's soloing it. Muradin is going to be picked up from MVP Miracle. Johanna going to be locked in for Tempest. This does sort of force them into the Johanna pickup, because they don't want to get isolated out. If they didn't pick it up here, MVP Miracle would ban it in the next round, further isolating the tank pool. Malfurion going to get picked up as well. If you can't have the top tank, the remaining you might as well have the top support. Illidan has a ton of space. It's also true, for those of you who are not familiar with playing Illidan, he really appreciates having kiting distance, because once he's on you, it's almost impossible to get away from him if he's played well. So the further you are away from safety on a map, the better Illidan is. That's why we see him picked up on bigger maps. In fact, the only map in Pro Play where we almost never see him contested is Tomb of the Spider Queen. And you think about that, it's a small map. The safety distance, especially in the early game, is very, very short. Brightwing is going to be the pickup for MVP Miracle that gives them double global, Falstad, and Brightwing, making sure they don't get locked out of their support of choice going into the next round of bans. And at this point, I think Tempest needs to think about what bruiser they don't want to deal with. They actually don't want to deal with Tyrael as a bruiser, apparently. Sanctification does essentially give a burst save. Brightwing does not really have a burst heal. So they're denying that from those team fights. It also means that Twilight Dream is guaranteed to land. There's no possibility of it getting sancted out of with especially good timing. And having Sank and Gust for the disengage is just too much. Too many options that could potentially knock Tempest out of their win. They feel confident in their team fighting ability against MVP Miracle. They pretty much lost to better decision making on Braxis, but Braxis is a relatively simple map. It's a 2-lane map, so it's a little bit of a different situation. They're cutting over to the commentators here instead of the draft. I don't know if there's a problem with the draft. That Tyrael ban was a little odd. Maybe they didn't mean to ban Tyrael. Maybe they're going to restart the draft. We'll just fast forward until we get back to the draft. Jumping ahead in like 1 minute increments. Alright, so it was a Tyrael ban. Zeratul is the response by MVP Miracle. And then we're going to see Tychus Li Ming locked in. That does give them a lot of poke potential. It also gives them a solution to Murden. Brightwing with no burst healing is going to have a really hard time keeping Murden alive versus Tychus. Tychus will be able to chunk Murden out of a fight. Murden, with his trade, however, can come back in. He can just jump out, wait for his trade to pick in, and come back in, and Tychus doesn't end up being that effective. But not having your frontline temporarily gives you a tempo advantage in a lot of fights. I think that's what Tempest is looking for. In addition to the potential to secure kills and the potential to zone with either of Tychus' heroics. Sergeant Hammer is going to be looking for MVP Miracle. This is a really big map, so it's going to make them a little bit slower rotationally, but they already have double global, and as I say that, they lock into Haka to give themselves triple global. So Sergeant Hammer's lack of mobility is not going to be an issue. They can count for it with their own push. And Zool going to be the pickup for Tempest. Glowering is a big fan of Zool on Sky Temple. And if you can really push a lane or push multiple lanes really hard with Zool, you do end up in an advantage where you're getting a significant amount of structure damage. And every piece of structure damage you get on Sky Temple is damage that you don't have to do with the objective, which increases the value of the objective for you. But I always feel like Zool is just a little bit risky to some degree on Sky Temple. But we're going to be able to fast forward directly into the game here. Thank you, Kewer, for the host. I appreciate it. Welcome, for those of you who are just tuning in. We are doing the Gold League World Championship Wildcard Qualifier. I'm casting them from a VOD because I did not know there was going to be a clean feed available. Starting next week, I'll be casting them live from the clean feed. But for now, we're just focusing on the VOD. This is Game 3 of MVP Miracle on the left versus Tempest on the right. You're going to see Falstad immediately with the fly. Notice he flies past the vision to make sure to let them know they're not there. He's going to hide out in the bush waiting for those stacks of Gathering Storm. But Tempest is not going to give him free stack of Gathering Storm. That's just not going to be a thing that's going to happen. A little bit of a cheeky move by Falstad there, just trying to get some free value. Did not end up working out for him. Dahaka, meanwhile, going to use his burrow for a similar reason, going to get up there. Now they have vision. They're really fighting for Johanna versus Dahaka. It's kind of funny. We're going to see a 3-man brawl in mid as well. And we are going going to see Falstad versus Zul in the bottom lane. Zul is essentially going to be used almost as a solo laner in this context, which is not the ideal way to use them, but on a map this big, you really don't have a choice. You notice he is going to try and rotate mid. He's trying to get that skeleton pressure, but he's going to require help to clear the wave quickly enough. And we see Tis just trying to be a distraction, getting the, free storm bolts right there. He did not actually go for Perfect Storm. He went for Third Wind, which is actually a common response to Tychus. Normally we see a lot of Korean tanks prefer that Perfect Storm just for the burst potential. But we're going to see Hammer forced to be defensive against this wave. Zul is trying to actually rotate between both lanes to get that dual lane skeleton pressure. This is something that is very timing dependent. You will miss a little bit of soak in the majority of cases trying to do this, but you will get that extra pressure from having the skeletons. You can see he's in a sort of a duel with Falstad in the bottom lane there. He doesn't want to let Falstad get those Gathering Storm stacks for free, but he really wants to get close enough to clear the wave. He's forced to rotate up, and as the next wave is coming in, and again, it doesn't quite work. The map is just a little bit too big. However, Tempest in their team fight, 3v3 brawl in the mid here, will be able to secure a lot of shots from the middle temple. Li Ming still pushing that top lane. She is going to rotate down here as the collapse happens. Falstad with the global is going to get an immediate pick on that Tychus, and this is the benefit of the globals. As soon as the fight starts to even go one way or the other, the global comes in, and it's beautiful. Hyde's going to mount up, wait for someone to rotate down to him, just in case, and when they don't, he is going to clear that wave. Brightwing is actually doing the rotation down. Brightwing now has Unstable Anomaly that is going to give her a lot of wave clear, not quite enough wave clear. Of course, to outpush Zul, but if Zul's rotating, she can clean up after him, and she can take the damage from the minion wave so it doesn't go onto her towers, because she can just stay there and heal it up with her trait. Meanwhile, after she clears the wave, she's going to come immediately back into this fight, making this a 5v4 for the moment. Dahaka is going to come in as well into the back line. Lockdown actually gets dragged. That's a beautiful drag by Dahaka. 2 kills secured off the back of that. Li Ming, as soon as she goes down, no mobility. And then Zul was already in the fight. Zul cannot back out of a fight. Low mobility option. Low mobility hero. No real mobility options. And again, I'm concerned they picked up Zul here. Johanna and Zul are both immobile frontliners. Having 2 immobile frontliners versus a highly mobile team is just always a little bit of a risk, and it has not yet paid out for them. But hopefully Tempest has a strategy that I'm just not seeing. We are going to see, again, the top shot starting to go over at first to Tempest. Tempest does seem to get on the points faster, despite the fact they don't have globals. They just have a slightly better rotation, slightly better map awareness in that sense. And they do end up getting more shots. They get more of the middle shots, and they got more of the top shots. So they end up being technically ahead in structure damage, but they end up being behind in experience because of 3 kills to 0, and because those globals allowed MVP Miracle to miss basically no soak. I don't know what happened there. That was just a weird jump. But Zul is dead. Whoa. That's not me, by the way, guys. That's just the VOD. This is why I want to cast this live. Looks like it's buffering. 1 second, guys. Is that happening to anyone else? I'm just going to pause it for a second, let it buffer. Again, I am casting this from a VOD. Weird. This is where we break out the tasteless line. Technology is the vehicle of esports. Okay, so the VOD is not advancing. Like the timestamp is the same, but levels jumped there. So that's not like a buffering issue. That's an actual issue with the broadcast. It must just be the VOD. Because we've been fine up till now. I apologize for that. Nothing I can really do about it. I'm casting from this clean feed. Yeah, it looks like it's lagging on China's end. That's not lag on the stream, by the way, guys. We have no drop frames. That is lag on the VOD. I apologize for that. Level 10 picked up before the second temple phase. This is almost unheard of. This is extremely unusual to have this happen, but because Tempest and MVP Miracle fought so hard during that first Temple phase, it ended up getting dragged out for an exceptionally long period of time. Meanwhile, MVP Miracle was soaking that entire time, so they got a significant experience advantage. And we are going to see a beautiful gust. Tychus ends up going down again, gusting into the wall. They are going to try and chase down these kills. Hooligan is extremely low and is getting chased by the Falstad. The aggressive barrel roll in does secure that kill with Boomerang plus the Boomerang. And that ends up being 3 kills for none. Somehow they managed to pick off Murden through Avatar, of all things, during that fight. I wish I could have seen that. But unfortunately, the VOD is jumping around due to Chinese lag. Oh my god. So frustrating. This is the first time we've had this issue, by the way. This is our 3rd game now, and this is the first time we've had any issues at all with the VODs. So I apologize. We are going to see Reset in the top lane abusing his Dahaka-ness to push that lane in as hard as possible. And this is, again, one of the advantages of having globals on the map. You just get so much lane pressure everywhere. You're going to see Tychus riding like a pleb, riding his way up there. To try and counteract that Dahaka push. So we'll have to go up as well. Tychus now in the bot lane because of the jumps around. Jump around. Jump around. Jump up, and get down. This is so weird. 13 talents were picked up for MVP Miracle. We do see Healing Static, Shield Dust, Airy Gust, Brush Stalker, and Giant Killer. No big surprises pick up. We are seeing pretty standard builds out of both sides of the aisle here, actually. And looks like we're in a little bit of a contention of boss, looking for a kill onto Frozen, onto Reset. They don't end up securing it. He does have, of course, he actually picked up Adaptation, I believe. Yeah, Adaptation, so he does manage to pop that, survive, actually heal off of that gank attempt. And as a counter kill, Tychus, Zool, and Malfurion are all going to end up going down, as does Johanna. And off of that, we're going to see MVP Miracle just take boss. Muradin is going to back for full health and full mana. They are, I think, going to want to push with this boss. That at a full Talenter advantage, they can push with the boss and get that advantage. They don't push with the boss. The next thing they can do is abuse their globals to just get both temples and potentially secure multiple keeps. They're actually, and we can see Tempest trying to get some of their own lane pressure. They are going to secure these bruises as quickly as possible. And we can see Lockdown in the meanwhile poking the boss, trying to get that damage. And again, the VOD jumped. Apologize for this, guys. Again. And we're going to see Dahaka on the top temple. And using that global presence, he can be in the fight if he really needs to be. Brightwing as well on the bottom. And there's a 3v, there's a chase scenario here happening in just above us in a 5v3. But with double global coming in and a 4-level advantage, they can just make anything they want happen. We do see the globals coming in. They secure 3 kills. Tis with the jump in to secure even more kills. And at this point, you got to question if there's any possibility that Tempest comes back in this game. That actually ends up being an ace. Sorry, we didn't see that team fight. 13 is finally picked up for Tempest. They're only now down 3 levels instead of 4. That is technically an improvement. Unfortunately, the death timers are not long enough to just go core and end, since there's not already a keep down. So MVP Miracle is going to take the safe approach here. They're going to grab all the camps, get all the temples, get those shots in. Send Brightwing top to get that counter push. Make sure that Bruiser camp doesn't get the lane too far pushed in. This is a double siege camp pushing bottom in the meanwhile. Bottom keep does finally end up going down to the boss plus the shots plus the push. Eventually they manage to make that happen. Middle keep is going to be weak after this bottom temple finishes, but it's not going to go away, and top keep is at about 3/4. So the next temple phase could potentially secure both keeps for MVP Miracle pretty easily, and I think that that is a realistic scenario, which means Tempest is going to be on a back foot. They're not going to win. They're not going to be able to fight 19 to 16. Generally speaking, when you're down 3 levels like this, you're wanting to fight 19 to 16. You just want to hold out until you can have that even Talenter fight. That's not going to be an option. They're going to have to take a fight 18 to 14 to have any chance at all of winning this game, which means that they're going to be depending 100% on securing that initial kill and looking for the Li Ming resets off of it. But it looks like MVP Miracle is aware of this. They're just going to push in the waves passively and then back up. That does give them some free damage on the keep. And past that, there's really nothing that can be done for Tempest. Like, they need to secure a pick, but MVP Miracle's not going to make a mistake in the rotations. It's just not quite going to happen. And again, that's not me lagging. It's the VOD lagged when it was being streamed. So that's all the weird jumps, unfortunately. It looks like the broadcaster was actually dropping frames as they were streaming it to Twitch, because you can see the timestamp isn't going anywhere. The VOD is advancing correctly. It's just jumping around because there was an issue with the initial broadcast. We're going to see a route onto Brightwing here. The gust for the disengage. Brightwing might actually end up going down here. It's going to be extremely close. And again, if they can get that single reset for Li Ming, they have a chance of taking a fight, even though they are Dana Talontier. They do end up getting the Brightwing, but they pay for it with Zool and Malfury. And reset is going to go down here as well, though. It's extremely low. Does end up going down. That ends up being a 2 for 2. That's actually, in some ways, the best Tempest could have hoped for. But we are going to see a beautiful jump out of the bush onto Tychus, and Hammer and Muradin are going to absolutely melt him. That ends up being a 3 for 2 in the end. The core is actually being threatened by that Bruiser camp in the top lane. 20 is picked up for MVP Miracle, and they are going to get middle keep 100% guarantee here from that bottom temple. And meanwhile, the shots are now going directly to core. Middle actually ends for Miracle. If Miracle rotates as 5 to that middle, Dehaka is going to be alive here momentarily, has his global available. Falstad already on the point, and needs to fight here. They need to fight on the point or they automatically lose the game. Nope, Gust is going to secure the game. They just gust them away. Tempest can't get on the point in time, and that will be GG. It's a 2-0 in favor of MVP Miracle. They are the winner of the set for the first wild card games in the bracket.